Welcome to our today's webinar session. We call it Spring Clean in May. Optimize your test structure and documentation for all the stakeholders, so for colleagues, for your boss, for managers, even for clients, like to have your tests and also the reports and the HTML reports and run lots of QF tests a bit more readable, easier to maintain, something about this. And to show you this, it's quite easy because we have some demo applications inside our QF test installation. In my case here, in my virtual machine, I'm using the QF test 6.0, which is supposed to be released in the next day. So you get even a glimpse about some upcoming features during the session. And what I do now is, let's say we'll simply load our demo application here. It's under Help, Explore Sample Test Suites. Well, by now we use this Swing Car Config demo suite, which is already a good example. Some parts of this are already quite nice implemented, and some others are left out for us to show you some improvements on this, which you could easily adapt then to your test cases and to your test runs to make the tests a bit more readable, useful for all the other stakeholders. Because most often it's the question, when I'm creating my tests, the tests are understandable for me, or I know what I'm doing there, but imagine half a year later, also just me, it's sometimes not 100% clear what the intention was to be about this test or how I implemented this test. So there's several ways in QF test to help you to document your tests and give some additional information inside the tests, and also to improve the traceability, let's call it, to understand your test later on a bit better. So let me just simply start the test to get the default behavior. Let me just reset everything beforehand. So using this demo test suite, which should bring up this small Swing application here. And then running some sample tests on the Swing application. But it's the same if you have a web application, a Windows application, whatever, some SWT application. It doesn't matter because the behavior in QF test itself, like creating the test suites, is always the same. So the test is already finished. We here have 7 test cases running, no errors. And if you open up the run log via this shortcut button here, or hit the shortcut Control-L, we get the QF test run log opened. We just resize this a bit. And here we see already some additional features of QF test 6.0. We have here some duration indicators, which show the duration of several test steps, just to help you analyze your tests a bit more. And here, if you look into our tests, we have 3 test sets. This test set is doing some actions with the models and the prices and calculating some discounts. Then we have the other ones checking some options and then some calculations in the end. And if you look into these tests here, I see a data driver where my data is coming from. So in this case, I have a test case running over several models with several prices during this check. And here below this, I just see we have loop pass 1, loop pass 0, loop pass 3, loop pass 4, and it's kind of hard to find out what is going on in this test case. I always need to drill down the test case, and inside the test case, I need then to look where the action is going on, or especially which values are used in the test case here. This is a test case run with the car Rasant, and this is using the price of 17,000, which is also used in here. And if I want to find it out for loop pass 4, it's the same. I always need to drill down inside this test case and find out this is running with i5 and it's using the 29,000 here for some checks, some other additional actions, just some really simple test case in here. And what I can do then is to make this the first step a bit more readable. So to skip this loop pass 0, 1, 2, I go back to my test suite, find this specific test case, which is this one here, And here we have our data driver, where we provide this several models and several prices. And up here we have the variable definition of ref model and ref price. And those both we can use in the data driver nodes. So if we go one level up here to the data driver itself, we have here several parameters for the name for loop path in the run log, and even for a name of a separate run log. So Braden has some problems with his headset, but the others can hear us, so he probably needs to rewatch it afterwards. So in my case, I want to say I have a separate name for the loop in the run log. In my case, this is, for example, a test run with car double colon, and here I can even use the variables we defined in the data driver with the default syntax, and the syntax we one sec, some dummy value in there, and here I can use simply the name of those two columns, the ref model and the ref price. So let's go here and say this is ref model, and then some other free text with price, ref price, something like this. And then if I keep this running once again, I just run this test case because we don't need the other one. We just did modifications in this single test case, or single test set, sorry. And then let's just reset the application and rerun this test case. And if you open up the run log once again and look into it here, it's already a bit more readable, because now directly at this level we know that this is a test run with the car Volvo with a specific price, that's 12,300. We have here some special characters in there because in the test case itself we were using some regular expressions, but it's just one part of our demo application here, because this one is running with currency dollar, but we have the same application running with euro if we're starting to have tested the German version. So it's just to make it a bit more flexible, and therefore we have some regular expressions in here. But this we could also change in our test case, but it doesn't matter for this showcase here. We simply wanted to show to make the test a bit more readable. And the first step would be to use this description in the name for loop path in the run log, where we can put in directly our free text, the variable names, and then combine this with even some other variables to make this a bit more readable. And then we don't need to drill down to the sub-steps to find out which values were used. We directly see it at this specific level up here. And the same we could also do for the test case itself. So in the test case here, we have here also parameters name for run log and report. So we can say this is test case prices for car, and here again we use our ref model. We could also use the price variable here. Just skip it by now and just use this one. And if we run this once again, and go to the run log, and we see here our test runs, and then inside this test run we have the test cases named with the car which was used inside this test case. And imagine you have a large test set or large test design, and you want to tell a coworker that there was a specific issue in some of those test cases. It's quite easier than to tell them, oh, there was a problem in the test case for the mini golf, and then you can simply jump to this one and analyze this one. I see I still have some typos in here, which we can simply correct. Then should be somewhere here, not like this. So now this is more or less looking like correct or a bit more readable inside the qf-test run log, which is like our internal run log. And for this, to read this, we always need to have some qf-test installed on the machines. Like we have this internal run log here. We can analyze the test step by step, what was going on. We even have the timings in here and all the variables used, all the dependency reference, everything. But if I want to give some overview, for example, to a test manager or some other management level, whatever, or simply want to get a quick overview over my nightly running test cases, then it's some kind of time consuming to always open up each and every run log and look into this to see what's going on there and how the results were running. Therefore, we have this HTML report, which we can access here via create report. And since I'm showing this with qf-test 6.0, we even have a button up here in the toolbar, which simply brings us the same dialog which we have in here. It's just a shortcut to like get a quicker workway to this part. And then if I have this running, qf-test creates this HTML report. Most of you may know already. And inside this, I get a quick overview about my test cases, which tests we're running. For example, here we have the model prices, which was running 4 seconds. We have some descriptions in here. And also we have the test case price for Rolo, Mini Golf, or Sand, and so on. And then we can even scroll down where we have the several sub-test cases. But right now, for example, here the i5 test case or the Rasant test case, it's not that readable or not that much information in here. Right now it's just test case prices for car, and then we have the dependency reference to bring up the application. And this is because the sub-steps by default are optimized out to get like a shorter overview or minimize the list here, because it makes no sense to have each and every click in here, because then it's more or less the same like the internal run log. But it should be supposed to be to give you some quick overview about it. And if you want to have some additional information in here, then we simply go back to qf-test itself. Inside this test case, if you're looking into it, we have here the sequences. So we have the test case was logged in the HTML report, this one, but the sequences were skipped out because qf-test is normally optimizing out this sub-sequences. If I want to have this also in the HTML report, the easiest way is to right-click on the sequence, go to transform node, and then select test step. You can also do this for the next one. I can even do this for a multi-selection list, then simply select more of them with the shift key pressed, and then we can simply convert all of them. I will do the same here and also in here, where we have a lot of test cases. Like let's see here. Here, for example, I just show you to convert those both and leave the last one as a sequence, just to show you the difference in the run log, because the main difference between the test step and the sequence is that the test step is by default appearing in the run log. You can even say for this specific test step, I want to have a separate run log, some additional functionalities in there. And the sequences I mainly use in my tests I'm creating for organizing my tests a bit more, because you don't want to have each and every of your subsequences in the HTML report. With this, you can more or less control which steps are included in the run log and which are just simply hidden, but also executed. And if I run this once again, so let's say we run the whole test suite once again. And just give it a minute. So now we're finished. We go again to a run log. Here we have the full information in there, the 25 seconds test run with all the sub tests, and also all the test steps in here each and every step. And if we go back to the HTML report, we have this dialog here, and here we can also see like the list test steps, which if I unflag this option here, even the test steps wouldn't appear, but this right now is the default. So I just leave it as it is and recreate his HTML report. Let me just tell my browser that it doesn't need to translate. So now if we scroll down a bit to our test case, for example, this test case prices for car mini golf, now we have the dependency. Then we have to check for price in main window, and then also check for price in vehicles dialog. Also, if we go down here to the other ones, like the one where we have here test case vehicle changes, and if we look how we set this up in our test case, we have here vehicle changes, which is this one, and there we set this one as a test step and this one as a test step. So those both are appearing here. And the last one, which is right now just a sequence, is not appearing here. But if we double check in the run log, this is, no, it's this one, sorry. It's still executed, it's just hidden from the HTML report. But each and every step is right now in there. This is, yeah, already quite nice looking for this specific test case in here, but I guess most of you don't have a design like this. They have test steps, and inside the test steps are directly the steps which were executed, like for example, several mouse clicks in there, several text inputs, several checks. Most of the time, if you have repeating actions, you create a procedure out of it to reuse some of the behavior. For example, this specific part here maybe reoccur in another test case, so it's quite useful to create a procedure out of this. Also for other steps. For my showcase right now, I'm keeping it quite simple. I simply create a procedure out of each and every of those test steps here, because vehicle changes, the new could be some procedure new, this could be some procedure change. So what I do is simply modify the steps or select the steps and then modify this or transform this into a procedure. So I can use this also in other test cases. And I also do the same for the sequence. It's there. And also here for those both. Since this is a quite common action, we have even a shortcut here, Control-Shift-P. I'm just using the mouse because otherwise it's moving a bit too fast on your side, because the screen updates a bit low. The last one is already using procedures, so I just keep it as it is. So now we are using procedures, and we just run this once again, that we can see the difference. Wait, disable the last one first, then it's getting a bit faster. Just disable this by now because we just need the first both. So now if we go back to the run log and create the HTML report out of it. Now the dialog is gone. So now we can see here in our test case, for example, in the vehicle changes, we have vehicle changes test case, our dependency, and then we have here now procedure new, procedure change. And here the icon before is still the icon of the test step, because we created or converted the test step into a procedure. And so because QFTest knows this, it's automatically putting the test step icon in front and also bringing this up here as a readable procedure call. By default, if I have procedure calls in my test case, they don't appear here. But since we converted them, they're automatically integrated in here. Well, let me just show you why this appears in the HTML report. If you look into this procedure calls, for example, in those ones here. This is the procedure was created. Down here in the comment, automatically is added a doc tag at test step, which tells QF-test if this one is executed, interpreted as a test step, so also printed as in the HTML report, which helps me with this. I can even control if I want to have a procedure appearing in the HTML report or not. I can even customize this a bit more. But beforehand, let's complete our procedure a bit more. For example, normally what I would recommend is for each and every procedure I'm creating, we always need to add some additional documentation in here. So let's say, which one we take? Let's take this one, which is creating a new car. Or this one here, check price in the main window. So basically we describe what this procedure is doing. Check for the price of a car. Selected. And here we can even like tell QF-test that this test step should be a bit more readable in the HTML report, because let me just reopen it. How I should understand it. Because right now we have here always procedure, double colon, and then the name of the procedure. But as a tester, it doesn't matter for me whether it's a test step, it's a procedure, it's a test call, whatever. I just want to have the information there, what is going on in the test case. For example, here, there was the price checked for the main window, something like this. This is my necessary information, but I don't necessarily need to know if this was a procedure, was some test call, whatever. So therefore, I can simply go to the test step and say, this test step has some specific description. This is, for example, check for price of car. And then I can even integrate the values in here with the default variable syntax. So I can also use the same which are used in here, like the ref model, the ref price. So I can simply say something like this. And if I run this, once again, the single test case, go again to the HTML report, just skip this option. And then if we scroll down here, check for price of car Rolo. We got now printed in here because it's directly using the variable Rolo, which gives us some additional information in the HTML report. We now have here a second row in between. This is because this one is also printed in there, so also the test description is in there, and I can even use this to document this a bit more, because we have a procedure here, and this procedure has some parameters like the ref model. We can say, or what I normally do is tell the user of a procedure or the caller of a procedure which parameters I can use in the procedure. And this is done via this parameter default values up here. So in this procedure, we are using the ref model as a parameter. So I simply add here one line and put the ref model in there, which tells also the other coworkers, if I'm using this procedure, which parameters I need to provide to have this procedure working correctly. And I can even document this down here, like simply select another doc tag, and this doc tag would be param, where I can put in ref model, and I can say this is the model to select in the table. And then we also have the second parameter, which is ref price to check for. It's completely up to you what you document in there. Also, to make it complete, put in the second parameter in here. And besides this param text, where I can say this procedure is using some parameters, I can also say, for example, procedure is returning some value. Then I also have some add return doc tag, where I can tell the user which value is returned if I'm calling this procedure. In my case, I can simply modify this procedure a bit. For example, let's say we are going in here, and if this check is resulting correctly, I can say I want to create a procedure. Let's name it price OK, for example, and then I'm simply returning this. Makes not that much sense for this specific procedure, but just to show you how this is working. So we define it here, the price key, and then we return this. So this procedure is basically returning a variable named price OK, which I'm simply returning here, return price OK. And this is a Boolean value if the price check was successful. Something like this. So I can define this, and there are some other parameters in here. And if we want to find out which doc text, we can call this doc text because it's oriented on the Java docs, the syntax. If you want to find out which other parameters are available in there or other doc texts are available, we simply go to the manual, and then let's search for the add param, which should appear someday. It's in here. We just resize this a bit like this. There should be also some other hit in this. Yeah, here. We can say we have this add param, which is working for procedures. It's also working for dependencies. We have a return parameter. I have a result. For example, if I'm setting some global variables, I can define this, which makes it a bit more readable because then I know this procedure is setting some global variables, which I can use later on. If I have some exceptions in there, I'm throwing some exceptions, then I could input on a throws. In a dependency, we have some global exception catch handler, let's say. Then I can even document all those catches. Quite useful are the other three below here, the author, the version, and the since. With this, I can define who created this procedure, for example. So let's say insert this one here. Let's make it complete while writing the author, which is then, for example, my shortcut key. And then we can say since when this is in there, and this is, for example, since today. And then if we create a procedure for some specific version of your application or with some based on some QF test version, you could even put in the version you're wanting in here. And with this, we are more or less complete with documenting our procedure itself. If we document it like this, let me just save this somewhere else because it's right now under my program files. For example, to this one. Yes. And then out of this documentation, like my documentation of this procedure, I can create this package documentation. So the documentation basically of all my dependencies and all my procedures to give some overview to customers or coworkers, whatever. We simply select this create package documentation. And then QF test is parsing this test suite file and creating this quite nice looking package documentation. You can even customize this to your own CI needs if necessary to. But inside here, if we go to my procedure, I'm just documented. Let me just see which one was it. This one here. Check the price in the menu window, where we have here the description in there. And if you go to the procedure, we have all the sub documentations in there, like all the parameters are simply documented. Also the return values, who it created, since which version, and since which date. This is in there. So with this, you can like simplify the use for all your other coworkers, because then they know what this procedure is doing. You can completely document what is going on there. In some test cases, or also if you have parameters and the parameters are not that easy, like not that single strings where they rely on some specific format, you can even put some sample values in some parentheses here to help the user understand what he or she needs to pass in the parameter. And since we are providing this functionality to create a documentation for all your procedures, we have the same for our qfs.qft standard library, which is already included in the qftest installation. You can simply go to help and then click here at standard library qfs.qft, which is our base library coming with qftest. And here, for each and every of the procedure and each and every of the package, we have a full documentation. And if you go in there, we have the description, we have the documentation of other parameters, which exception is thrown, who created it, since which qftest version that's in there. So basically all information you need to have to use a procedure. And if you have this documented quite well, like we did here, and you later on create another test case and, for example, create a test case, and inside this one you're putting a procedure call, you get this dialog to select a procedure. And if we go to a procedure here, we also see the documentation down here. So it even helps us to get some information directly via selecting the procedure itself. So this then, let me just create it once again. We have here the test step in there. We have this running. Once again, and go to our test cases in here with, just see what it is. Oh no, it's in this one. Oh no, it's here. Track price for main window. And here, even here, we have the full documentation of the procedure in there with all the sub-steps. We have our return value here, which we also defined here. Right now it's not used in here, but this is still, the whole information is in there. Also for all the test cases, there should be some documentation. Let me just see which one was documented here. I understand what there's no. Here's one in the test set. There's some check the dialogues, description, check standard prices, and this one. So even this documentation or this comment field here would then appear in the HML report. If we create this once again, then here we have here the description, which is directly out of the test suite, which is just up here, like the full documentation of this one is appearing in here. And then also for all the sub steps, which we have in here. Like here we have the tested options, which is checking the dialogues with all the options in there. So all those nodes are documented as well. With this, you can get a better overview about what's going on in your tests. You have here some description of several parts. In this case, my test cases are not documented yet. Might be some other to do afterwards. But with this, you get a quite nice looking overview about your test cases, what is going on in the test cases. If we look into our test case, for example, in the dependency, which is starting our application, for example, here, we have some if nodes where we have some if-else clauses and then decide what is going on in there. Here it's quite simple. It's just checking a variable, and if it's not true, this variable, it's going into here. But also here for the if nodes and also setup nodes and also catch nodes, we have this name field here, which you could use to even like help your coworkers to understand what is going on in the test case. Because then they don't need to understand the like cryptic condition. This one is quite simple here, but it might be a bit more complex. You simply put in a name here, and then your coworker directly knows in this if clause, okay, this is just running if the SOT is not connected, or if it's not running already, then this is executed. So with this, it's even easier to understand for them. Also here we can use it if I have a try catch, which I most probably not have in here somewhere. But let's say if I put some steps in here in a try catch block, then I can even describe here what is going on in this try, so that user already knows before trying to dig deeper and have all the steps, understand it, directly knows what is going on in this try catch step. So wherever this name field is available, I would recommend to use it to give your coworkers a better knowledge or better know about what is going on in these test cases. Okay. So let's say what we have done in this test suite to make it a bit more readable. The first one, just to give you a short recap, the first one we are using is this data driver, where we can use our free text, combine this with variables to give some easier view here, because then inside here we have all the description. We don't need to drill down into the parts. Then we also have seen how to use test steps. With the test steps, we can decide which one is appearing in the HTML report. We can even optimize this via using procedures. In the procedures, I can still have all of those test steps where I can define my own name. So this procedure : is not put in front of the procedure. I can describe it. I can put in all the parameters in here. So basically all of these steps. I can create a package doc out of this. I can even create a test documentation out of it, which is mainly the same like the package doc. Package doc is for all the procedures and packages and dependencies. Test doc would be for all the test sets and test cases. So this is mainly the same. But for the test itself, if you documented something in your test, we get a description in here. We get some sub information here. It's quite limited because there's nothing much in there, but even this you could use to get some overview about your test cases, your existing test cases, help the coworkers to understand them, what is going on there. So basically this is all the steps to use right now to make our tests easier to maintain or easier to read. But as like most of the keynotes, there's always just one more thing at the end. In our case, we have some additional feature which was provided, I think, starting with QFTest 5.0 or something. And we have a new node in QFTest which you could use to, on one side, order your test cases a bit more or make your test cases a bit more readable, and also like point out some places in your test case where you need to do some additional works. And it's not the QFTest marks which we have in here, which is already a long time in there. We have a new node. It's under this one. It's the comment node, like in any other programming language. We can simply put in here, for example, this is a please review. And then we can put in some additional information in here. Imagine you have a test case created and you want to have your coworker to do a review on this test case. You can simply put it in here. If you want to separate your test cases a bit more, let's say we have here another one. Let's enable this one once again. I can even use like empty comment nodes just to create some space in between the test cases so it's a bit more readable. And here I have this comment field where I can put in some detailed information, and the heading is the one which is appearing here. And if I want to bring this out even a bit more, I can even use some styling in here. Let's say we want to have some color in there. We can use some HTML code, something like this. And then Q of test is even like printing this is in red colors or in green colors, whatever you prefer here. You can almost use almost any HTML text in here. You can even emphasize this a bit more, put this in a bold and, for example, red, because this is really important. You can put some whatever at user XYZ, that this specific user needs to know that this is a part which he or she needs to review. Inside this, we simply use the HTML tags to make this even a bit more readable. And then if the review is done, the coworker simply deletes the comment itself or just modifies the heading or the comment in here. You can even use this to like put in some documentation about the review, what steps needs to be done, something like this. And one thing we also use it quite often is just to give the test cases some space in between, that they are a bit more readable and easier to select. Yeah, this was more or less everything we wanted to show you about this topic today, about optimizing your test structure, documenting to make it more useful for all the stakeholders like colleagues, your boss, your manager, even your clients. You could send this, for example, the test documentation might be helpful for the client where they can see which steps are going on, or even the HTML reports where they see each and every of the detailed steps which we're running. And this is, I think, a quite nice way to improve your already existing tests. We have seen this with this car config test suite here, but you can easily adapt this to your own needs in your test case. And since we are finished with the, let's say, official topic, I would stop the recording now, and then you can ask your question. You can drop them in the chat. You can even unmute your microphone